Boys and girls, put your hands together for Rufio, who's not here. But what a great track, huh?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Al, have you heard that before?
I did, yeah. As a matter of fact, he played a little bit of it, and then I saw the video that you guys did out in the parking lot, and he was singing that to you guys.
He's such a great kid. He's generously donating that track to be the intro, outro music for the relaunch for the Become Your Own Superhero podcast, which is very exciting.
That is
so
really cool.
that was like that's a new remix that he's just sent to me. So you guys are literally the first people to hear that in its entirety. So
Nice.
Well done, you guys. Laurie, Scott, Diane, welcome also to you guys. My my beautiful wife Anna is co-hosting with me today, managing the back end. Unless you're driving, can you get on video so we can see your beautiful face?
I will get on just a minute. I'm still finishing up some eggs real quick because I hit the gym this morning. So I'll be on as soon as I'm done chewing.
Yeah, good.
Did you see Al when he first got on? He didn't have a shirt on, so we figured you'd be that way too. So.
Well, I was gonna come shirtless, but it plummeted down to about 44 degrees Fahrenheit here in Utah, as you boys would know.
Yep.
Laurie, where are you dialing in from?
I'm in Boone, Iowa, which is northwest of Des Moines.
Boone.
Mm-hmm.
Boone, like a gold boon?
Like what?
Like a boon, like an abundance of things?
No, Boone, Boone.
Oh, yeah. It's spelled differently, but like, I think it means the same. There you go. Thanks for coming along. Diane, can you hear me? Where are you coming in from?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, I'm in McMinnville, Oregon.
In Oregon. Very good.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us. Are you any chance of getting on video today?
I am. Don't have my video on.
Well, you
I
don't
can see
have
you though.
You don't have to, but if you get an opportunity for us to see your beautiful face, that would be fantastic. It'll help with the whole point of this, a course in courageousness. Isn't that exciting?
Laban, before you start, I'm supposed to tell you and Anna that you are missed and she loves you very much. And that's from Mallory. She's actually came up from St. George yesterday to be at Recovery Day. So she told me to make sure to tell you guys hi.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. I'll send her a message back later on.
And big hello to her too.
Definitely.
So I wanted to start off with just a couple of questions. When you first heard about this event and you saw the language that we're using, what are some of the thoughts that came to your own minds? And feel free to raise your hand, or if you're off mute, you can jump in pretty quick with this small group. Brad, you look like you're being polite, waiting for someone.
Oh yeah, just the power of speaking up directly, just not having fear and being able to say what's on your mind.
That's a great start. Yeah, exactly. Laurie, what about you?
This year has been a really bad year for me, so my confidence is totally gone. So hoping this will help out get my confidence back.
Well, we honor you for sharing that so vulnerably. And here, do you want some good news immediately? Your confidence is not shot, because if it was completely shot, you wouldn't be here. So you should be proud of that fact. And by the end of this 2.5 hours together, we've got 2 hours total of the actual presentation, for lack of a better word. And we've just allowed half an hour for some Q&A at the end. I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions, but there is no other commitment really than you will leave this time together today with more energy than when you started. Okay. So that is my commitment to you. And I wanted to reintroduce myself because I know I got some really close friends here and some people that don't know me super well. But Laban Ditchburn, born 27th of June 1980 in Christchurch, New Zealand, in Wendover Private Hospital, which is now a nursing home, and born with the umbilical cord trapped around my neck. And when I came out, the doctor ripped it off, and there was my first close call with death. And I've had a number of these over the course of my life, and I've had enough now to realize that I've got a huge army of people looking after me in another realm. And through overcoming drink and drugs and gambling and philandering and autoimmune disease and negative self-talk and a litany of other dysfunctions through being a child of divorce, I've discovered my purpose of being known as the world's most positively influential speaker, and declaring that ownership by being the world's best courage coach. Now, that declaration is nothing at all to do with ego. And it's a declaration that I get to ask myself every morning: how would the world's best courage coach conduct himself? And it's through the discovery of this declaration, which only came about in September of last year, that it's transformed my life. It has absolutely transformed the way that people respond, engage, react, and behave in my presence, because it's created an inner self-confidence, a clarity that it's really hard to explain to people that are still on their journey of discovery. And what I really wanted to do by the end of today was just to give you, if it's one idea about how you can take control of your own situation by stepping out of your own way and making your own declaration. And it doesn't need to be the world's best courage coach. It can be. There is room for more than one world's best courage coach. But you all are Michael Jordan level genius at something, including you, Laurie. And no matter what you've gone through over the course of your life, or the last 12 months, or the last 24 hours, the moment you realize that you can reclaim that as your greatest asset and inspire legions of other people with your bravery and your confidence, then you'll understand what purpose is in life. And a lot of people confuse purpose with getting the high-powered corporate gig, getting the big salary and driving the flash car, but it's a false expectation. It's a false reality. You talk to the most successful people on the planet that are miserable, and they've got, millions of dollars, billions of dollars, but they don't have any fulfillment. So we'll talk about some of that today. And I wanted to start off with something a little unorthodox. I want to talk about boundary setting. Who here, quick show of hands for those that are on screen, has had trouble in the past with boundary setting? Is anyone game enough to give me an example of boundary setting that they didn't set strong enough ones for?
Yeah, I'll share, Laban. Mine was really bad in the depth of my wife's addiction. They teach people who battle addiction to set boundaries and to basically stay on their own side of the street. And I did not realize that us on the other side had to set boundaries as well. Once I found that out, I started setting boundaries, but I didn't stick to it. And it took me some time to finally realize all I was doing was hurting myself and hurting my wife by not doing that.
Yeah, fantastic, Al. And again, thank you for sharing. What were some of the negative outcomes of not setting, like the actual examples of not setting proper boundaries?
I'll give you a really good one. I always threatened her with divorce, that if she started drinking again, I'd divorce her, thinking that would get her to stop. And I never held to that. And after saying that to her 3 or 4 times, probably more than a half a dozen, she finally realized, hell, he ain't going to do it. All he does, that's just a threat. When I finally got to the point when I did let her back in the house, I was really firm, very strong with my boundaries. And I don't know what changed in me. Maybe it was the way that I was putting across, but she realized this is it. He's not giving me any more. And that completely changed things for the both of us. And I just had to learn how to be stronger, a lot stronger, because my integrity to me is everything. And I'm breaking my own integrity. If I'm setting boundaries and saying, this is what I'm going to do if this happens, and I'm not doing it, then my integrity is not there 100%.
Yeah, I mean, brother. And I think there's a clear distinction, right, between boundary setting and conditions and manipulation.
Yeah.
Big distinction, and learning how to identify which is super important. I want to read an exchange of messages that happened just in the last 24 hours with me. And I'll give you some context before I read this out. This is a person who shall remain nameless. I'm involved in a project together with them. And over the course of since April this year, I've had 4 messages of, are you okay? And the previous 3 messages, I've replied back, with full integrity, assuming that the person was genuinely concerned for me. And the 4th time around, I was like, come on, man. So, so I'll paraphrase some of this, because I don't want to share any of the information, because they're not here to defend themselves, but if they remain nameless, you can just get a good feel. Now, you can judge me on the language that I use and the way that I interact with these people, but I'm going to bear it all for you from what I've written, just to give you an idea of the kind of levels of self-confidence that I've been able to develop in setting those boundaries and getting good at them to a point where I know that it's the best outcome for me until I learn a better way. Okay. So he says, it's a Friday morning. Hello, Laban. Are you okay? I see that and your next slot is up next week. Name. If you keep hounding me about being okay, I'm not going to be. Last I checked, you weren't my mother. Did I offend you? He says. I'm not offended. I'm telling you to mind your own business. I'm confused, he says. The thing is a team creation that you are a valuable part of. I'm interested to check in with you to see how you are doing. I see it as my business to care about the people with whom I'm collaborating. My response, you may see it as your business, but I'm asking you to leave it. Until I invite you to be involved in my personal life, it's off limits. If I wanted your help, I'd ask for it. And if I'm totally honest, your interest in my okayness feels completely disingenuous. I'm not usually wrong in my intuition. I might be on this occasion. I would kindly ask that you seriously rethink your intentions when approaching me. If I feel this way, it's likely others may too. I sent that last night, woke up this morning. He's on a different time zone. And here's what I got back. You ready for this? Thank you for your honesty and for kindly asking me to seriously rethink my intentions. I did exactly that. And you know what? Your intention is spot on. I had a hidden agenda. I was asking you, are you okay? When in fact, I was concerned for our project more than I was about your okayness. I recognize that, and I was disingenuous, and I'm sorry about that. Thank you for helping me see where I had a blind spot. I'm going to read the final response. Your apology is accepted. I will, however, eat you alive if you ever try that shit on me again. Now, first things first, does anyone have any thoughts on that? Any comments? There's no right or wrong. If you feel like there's some judgment there, I'm open to receive that. You can speak freely. So what's going to happen in this relationship? Now, this guy's not a close friend or anything. He's not a relative, obviously, someone that I'm doing work with. Now, he's very, very clear about what his interactions with me need to look like in order for him to have the best outcomes. And as you are hearing that exchange, you're probably thinking, oh, that's a bit harsh, or you're being a bit of a dick there, Laban. But am I? Is that really the outcome? If I'm getting the outcome that I desire, this guy was clearly had ulterior motives. And for me, operating in integrity and being honest and, declaring yourself the world's best courage coach, I have to ask those questions. I have to confront those demons. I have to hunt the discomfort, because as Sterling Hawkins says, if you don't hunt discomfort, discomfort will hunt you. And I'm okay with that relationship existing purely at a superficial level when it comes to the project we're on together. It's funny, my intuition on this person early on I was like, there's something about this person. And then he admitted it when I confronted him. So that's literally just happened in the last 48 hours. And I felt that pertinent to share with you all as an example of probably one of the more extreme ends of the spectrum when it comes to being brave and courageous. And now I don't have to worry about being frank with this guy anymore. And I want you to think about what your life can look like if you're able to have these kind of exchanges with people that are causing grief, or you're allowing to cause grief in your life. Anna, my darling Anna.
You got to put yourself on mute. I remember myself being so scared to tell people something like that, because I was afraid to offend them, or I was afraid to be not likable by people. But what I've noticed, Laban, and what I'm learning with you, not because I'm your wife, but just because I was in a similar situation where I couldn't set my boundaries, I'm learning from you that this really sets you free when you speak up for yourself. This really cuts people off your life that you don't have to spend your energy on. And that's a really, really amazing thing about it.
That's so good, darling. I appreciate you. It's so fun. It's so fun watching you and your journey, and maybe it's an opportunity for you to introduce yourself to people and who you are and your background.
With pleasure. I know some people know my story, but for those who don't, I suffered a lot in my life, and I've suffered in silence. I didn't know how to set the boundaries. I was a people pleaser. I was in a deep depression at some point. I had anxiety. Very often I would say yes when I wanted to say no to people. I would work for 10 hours a day just to try to prove myself. I would look like I have it all together from the outside, but inside I was destroyed by crippling fears of judgment, limiting beliefs, negative emotions like a shame and pain and guilt. And I didn't realize where was it coming from until I finally addressed my childhood traumas and my deepest, darkest. And for me, it was childhood sexual abuse when I was 15 by my stepfather, which resulted in 2 pregnancies and 2 forced illegal abortions. And 1 abortion damaged my reproductive system. And when we wanted to start our own family with Laban, we had some challenges because this reproductive system damaged caused 16 consecutive miscarriages. And a few years ago, 2 years ago, I finally opened up what's happened to me as a young girl to Laban. And it was one of the best moments of my life because his reaction was exactly how I was hoping for. And he was able to provide me so much support. And in September last year, I opened up to my mom for the very first time what's happened to me. And she straight away pressed criminal charges against my stepfather. And I went back to Russia, to my hometown of Sakhalin, to testify against him. And I reclaimed my power back. And I turned my trauma into my superpower by started speaking up about what's happened to me. And while I was in Russia, I've realized that we don't have any childhood sexual abuse survivors support. And I've reached out to the biggest magazine in my hometown and I asked them, would you be interested to publish my story? And they said yes. And the article went viral. And I left my email address saying, girls, if you are going through a similar situation and you have no one to talk to, send me an email. And hundreds of emails from women and men telling me, thank you. Thank you for opening up. Thank you so much for bringing this topic. It really, really helped me with my trauma, with my sexual abuse. And I've realized that there are so many people who are still struggle and still afraid to tell their stories. And I decided to become the biggest voice for those people. And now I'm sharing my story. I've shared my story on Bread's beautiful, amazing show, on Al's show, The Other Side of Addiction and Resilience Talk with Brad. And this is the best feeling when I'm receiving messages from people saying, you helped me to transform my life. Thank you. And this is the fulfillment I was always looking for. So the power of speaking up is the most powerful thing you can ever have in this world. You have something to add, Laban?
I might be the world's best courage coach, but Anna's the most courageous person I know. And for those who haven't heard Anna's story, does she look like someone who's carrying around the burden of shame and guilt and all the other malarkey that goes with trauma like that? It's remarkable when you give and take the power back, what kind of healing could be done. And yeah, there's still work to be done with all the traumas that we experience, but this can be you too. Like if what you're hearing with Anna is so overwhelmingly shameful or whatever with your own experience, baby steps, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And so I want to transition. Diane, if you're there, I'd love to ask you, and you don't need to reveal anything about yourself. I understand you want to protect your privacy, and that's totally fine. Is there anything in your life that you need help with right now with regards to speaking up?
I don't know. I kind of spoke up to my mom 5 months ago, and every time I talked to her, she'd spend at least an hour complaining and putting people down. And she's talking from the last 80 some years of her life, things when she was a teenager. And I just finally said, I'm not going to listen to this. And so I told her, I said, if you want to start going into all the bitternesses you have over all your life, I will hang up. I'm not going to spend my time listening to this. And so, of course, I haven't heard from her since. But that was really hard, and something that I've needed to do for probably 40 years. So I guess I'm kind of taking steps and setting boundaries a bit more strongly with people.
So this is wonderful, Diana, and thank you for sharing your story as well. Is there any part of you that regrets having that conversation with your mum?
Not an ounce, not a cell in my body regrets it.
Okay, and you say you haven't heard from her at all since you've had that conversation?
Right. I actually wrote her. I wrote her several page letter, and she and my younger brother, who is taking care of her, are trying to manipulate her brothers to pay for stuff for her, and it's just a whole manipulation game. And so I actually copied her two brothers on the letter, because she has been trying to use each other against each other. And I don't even know if anything she says is true or not. And so I thought, if they are aware of everything, then they can move forward with greater knowledge.
I saw a wonderful quote yesterday. Toxic blood is not thicker than water. And the reason I wanted to ask you that is in my own family, I've had to set clear boundaries that have resulted in family members ceasing communication, exactly in that scenario. But I wanted to shed some hope that by setting that boundary and just continuing to operate with an integrity and leading by example as best that you can, what's happening in my own life is that my family members and some friends are starting to knock on the door again, and either apologize or want to re-engage contact under those healthy boundaries, right? For both of us, it's not one-sided thing. And if she was to pass away tomorrow, would there be any legacy regret or anger that's left unresolved?
I don't think so.
You're at peace.
I really laid a lot of it out there, and she can live with her choices, but her bitterness shouldn't be part of my life, and I don't want anything to do with it. And I talked to her about the bitterness, and it's like drinking the poison and expecting me to get sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to stay clear of it. So, even when I talked to her last, which was last December, it was anywhere. I lost my train of thought. My husband just came in. I lost my train of thought there.
That's okay. You're just talking about the time that it's been. And
I've tried to help her to, it's like I'd bring out the positive. She'd give me this horrible story of bitterness, and I'm like, well, do you remember this? And she's like, oh no, I forgot about that. Well, there were lots of positives even in her stories. The ones that I lived part of, a lot of them were before I was even born. So
let me share a quick story with you that I think might be of value. So my father, who's still alive, he's 73 now, he lives back in Australia. He had a heart attack in 2011, and the only reason he survived was because my younger brother, who lives interstate ordinarily, was in town for one night to attend my farewell party. And so the universe wanted him around. That he came home, he declined to go out partying and drinking back in those days. And he came home, he was staying with my dad, and he found my father on the floor, and they called the ambulance, and they got him and saved his bacon. He had a quadruple bypass. He lived a pretty sedentary life as a radio announcer, and his health was secondary. Highly stressful existence, 2 divorces, and a number of kids. But he quit smoking, and he kind of started looking after himself. And then his health sort of went by the wayside, and he continued eating and poisoning his body with all the stuff. And through my own health journey that really kicked off in 2016, I came to learn a number of things that would have directly helped and impacted my father. And I started the podcast, and I would interview some of the most brilliant medical experts on the planet. And I would use my father as the test case to basically get free one-on-one consulting that would have not been available ordinarily. Like, you couldn't get access to a lot of these guys. Some of them are Nobel Prize winners, and what I would do is I would finish these interviews, and I would send them to my father and say, Dad, this is going to save your life. This is going to make everything better. You're going to put your diabetes into full remission, all this other stuff. Well, I came to learn he never, ever watched any of these damn videos, right? And I was trying to save and fix this guy. And it took me a long time and a lot of heartache to realize that it's not my job to try and fix him. And it was a painful realization for me, because all I wanted was my dad. He split up with my mum when I was 3.5, and I understand why he left. My mum was crazy at the time, and I wanted my father back in my life. I wanted to have a relationship with and at one point, my father said to me I was his favorite child, which is a terrible thing to say, by the way, if you're a parent of 4 children. And now we have zero communication. And he said to a sibling of mine about 9 months ago during a conversation that I was the crazy evangelical one in the family. And he didn't believe in what I was doing. Heartbreaking to hear from someone that you just admired. But I set that boundary and realized that me trying to fix people was this fruitless exercise, or an exercise in futility. And all I can do is to lead by example. Well, what's been happening is that just in the last month, my auntie, his younger sister, through my introduction and her paying attention to some of the stuff that I'm doing, has lost 50 pounds. She's 5'2", and put her type 2 diabetes into full remission by me being able to introduce her to a health coach back in Australia. The follow-on effect of that is my auntie is absolutely over the moon. She's in her 60s now. She feels fantastic. And my half sister, Katie, who's the older of the 2 half sisters, is now being mentored by my auntie for her weight loss journey. And there's cousins and friends coming out of the woodwork saying, "Hey, Laban, what are you doing? Like, what's happening? How did you fix that?" And Diane, my reason for wanting to share this with you and with everyone here is that freeing ourselves from the tyranny of trying to fix and just focusing on leading purely by example as best we can really is yielding the best results of anything that I've ever done. And if your mum was to pass away, heaven forbid, without you ever having contact, the only thing that I would get you to check and take time to meditate on this or whatever is to truly have forgiven. And maybe, Anna, if you can find on YouTube that interview I did with Dr. Fred Luskin, who founded the Stanford Forgiveness Project, and he was responsible for the work that he did to reunite Auschwitz camp survivor with the camp commander, and IRA bomb blast victims to be reunited with the perpetrator. stuff that really would seem unforgivable. And if you hear Anna's story, she's forgiven her perpetrator. She's forgiven her mother. She's forgiven her biological father who abandoned her. And if you are clear that there is forgiveness, that will make life significantly easier and will prevent any issues with guilt further down the line.
Yeah, I've forgiven her over and over, and there's nothing there. I just feel clear in that.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I mean, that's a lesson for anyone, really. That can go to anyone. And it's great that you've been able to get to that point. Sometimes family aren't supposed to be there. They're not supposed to be in our lives. Just because they're related doesn't mean we need to hang around them, especially if they're causing us huge amounts of grief. Laurie, you got a question?
Not a question, but a statement. When my husband was getting cancer treatments out in North Carolina, one of the requirements of his cancer doctor was that he had to give full forgiveness to everyone who had hurt him, offended him. And because he said, the cancer doctor said that the unforgiveness can build as a cancer within the body.
That's an amazing medical expert. What do you reckon, Scott? Do you see many of those in your practice?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you want to quickly share who you are real quick and what you do?
Sure, I'd love to. My name is Scott Scherner. I'm a functional medicine practitioner and a biodynamic farmer. I've been helping people get healthy and stay healthy for 25 years. Prior to becoming a functional medicine practitioner, I was a health coach and a life coach, doing similar things as Laban, although he does it more full-time and has excelled in it. I'm very impressed by what he's accomplished, and he and I have had some great conversations. I loved what Diane had to say about talking with her mom, and I'm here today because even though I've been coaching people on speaking up and setting boundaries, I know very, very well for myself.
If you're interested in business.
Is the video okay?
Yeah, I can see. I think something just played in the background there.
Okay. Anyway, I'm always working on myself to make sure that I'm setting appropriate boundaries and that I'm speaking up when I should be speaking up, and being my authentic self and being true to myself and honoring myself. So it's always ongoing work for myself. And I thought to share something with everyone that happened about a year ago, maybe 10 months ago. I work part-time in the ski industry, and last year when I went to pick up my uniform and I walked into the building, the CEO was standing there, and he's telling me that I had to put on a mask, which I call a muzzle. And I just, this is the guy that could have just ended my 35-year history with his company right there. But I just said, no, I don't have to put on a mask. And when other employees were around, the word spread very quickly how I stood up to the CEO and just refused to comply with his demands that would jeopardize my health. And so it was that was again, that was me working on my own, setting my own boundaries and doing what I feel is right. And right now I have to go talk to one of my neighbors. I don't have to, but I want to. I want to talk to one of my neighbors whose dog came onto our farm a few days ago and killed several of our animals. And I want to confront him with kindness and love, but I also want to confront him and say, you need to take responsibility for your dog killing our animals, and we need compensation. And just my experience in life, that if I confront him with love and compassion and empathy, that the outcome might be more of what I'm looking for. Anyway, I'm just very happy to be here, and I've loved what everyone's had to say, and I'm excited to see where it goes for the next 90 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. You made my morning with those statements, especially coming from your background, and you neglected to tell everyone that you were a fighter pilot in the Air Force, amongst other things. Extraordinary.
Thank you, Laban. There's actually Army Apache helicopters.
My bad. It was something cool.
Well, I was also a dog musher up in Alaska. I've been a ballroom dance teacher. I've done a multitude of many things. I was worked with the U.S. ski team as a race coach, and so I've had some amazing jobs, which to me was just it was like, I get paid to do this, really. So but well, thank you for saying that, Laban. That was very kind of you.
Well, this ties in with the whole subject. Like, now that people know this about you, I mean, your background is already unbelievable, but I think I see this all the time. I see people that are so brilliant that don't step into their greatness because they don't think that speaking up is going to be of any benefit. They think it's boastful. And what it does is it allows people to have a much more well-rounded picture of who we are, and they can tap into that experience. Like, if people need to ask for help, they can ask better questions, or if they know that they can help us, they can position that help in a way that's going to be way more beneficial. And I think that's why I don't think it's being boastful. And I think this is what this whole world's best courage coach has taught me, is that it's designed to polarize people that are insecure in their own beliefs. People are raised to not be boastful and to not have what they call tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand, Australia, and England, where, even the most successful athletes that I've spoken to, the former coach of the national rugby team for the New Zealand All Blacks is the most successful sporting coach across any code for a winning ratio. Any international sport, team sport, he's the most successful guy. And I interviewed him on the show, and like, getting him to share his knowledge bombs was like pulling teeth. And it finally got him to open up, and I was lucky enough to get an endorsement on in my book, which was a huge thrill for me. But it's made me realize that we need to put ourselves in a position where we can share our greatness. Because just because you're having a shitty day, week, month, or year, Laurie, you have tremendous value in your life experiences, if only you know to share them in the right environment and to pick people that will lift you up and support you in that journey. Scott, if I might, would you like an idea about how to have a really fruitful conversation with this neighbor of yours?
Absolutely.
And you may have this nailed, but my psychologist, when I was going through the Gamblers Helpline, shared this with me. I had an alcoholic housemate at the time who was like, I was a big drinker, but this guy was nuts. He would get drunk and high from Thursday until Sunday night, and was a complete like personality shift, absolute nightmare, overbearing, big tall guy as well. And just, God, it was horrible. And I wanted to kill this guy. He was driving me nuts. And my psychologist spoke about the power of talking about how it made me feel. So that when I was talking to him, hey, Brendan, I need to talk to you about something. Yeah, sure. When you get blind drunk all weekend, it makes me feel really anxious, blah, blah, blah. And by using that language about me, hey, when your dog got out and it killed our turkeys and a couple of chickens, that made me feel, right? And I know this whole feeling thing has been weaponized a little bit by people that need to kick up the pants. But if you talk about it being about how it impacted you rather than your dog that did this, and I know you wouldn't do this anyway, but you did this, you did that, you did that. If you're saying when the turkey died, you know, it really upset us, and we've spent a lot of money doing this, that no one can take that away from you. No one can take that power away from you, and all their opportunity will be to apologize and write you a check. Like, and if they kick up a fuss, like, which I wouldn't think they would, hey, I really need to talk to you about something. I understand, you know, this is a really horrible situation. I wouldn't say it's not your fault, because it is. But I wouldn't use that language. It'd be about how it made you feel and no one else. What do you think about that?
I think that's perfect. And thank you for sharing that, because I've coached people the same way, but what I've learned over and over and over, that many times I forget what I know. I forget the most basic. And our farm is called Simple Life Mini Farm, and we came up with that name to go back to a simple life, go back to the basics, and you know, that's a simplified version of it. But to go to my neighbor and just express my feelings, you're right, no one can take that away from us, and that is far more powerful and also gentle, and not accusing him or his dog, but just say, here's how I felt, and here's why. I think that's extremely powerful, and I thank you for bringing that to my attention.
I tell you, Al, you're welcome, brother.
Yeah, I just want to elaborate off of that, of what was said. You know, when my wife was in the depths of her addiction, you've heard some of my talks, Laban and Anna, and you know, she was already full of daggers, and I threw a lot of daggers back at her. And when I learned how to communicate a lot better, it made such a huge change, not just in my life, but in her life as well. So instead of me always saying, when you do this, this is how I feel, I started saying, when this happens, this is how it makes me feel. So I took the blame throwing the blame on her, and I started taking responsibility for my own feelings. And that really, really helped a lot when you can own up to your own feelings and not throw that blame. And you guys saw me disappear for a while. My mom called, and she's really struggling with some things and something that happened with a neighbor. And it's kind of crazy because we're talking about taking our power back and things like that. And that's exactly what I started sharing with her, because she's allowing these people to run all over her. And it's driving her crazy, and she doesn't know what to do, you know, and she needs to start speaking up, but she needs to speak up in a way to where she's been around my dad since they were 16. And my dad was one of those guys, he would get in your face and he would tell you what a piece of shit you are, which now that's how she looks at things. It's when someone threatens you, you get in their face instead of communicating in a different way to get your power back. And that's what I was telling her. And she brought you and Anna up because I was telling her I was on you guys' little class here, and she thinks the world of you guys. I wish we had more time where you guys could sit down with her, because what little time you had, you sparked something in her brain, which is what she needs. So thank you for everything you guys are doing. But yeah, again, to go back to that, the way that we answer to people, I think doing it in a better way of communicating, we do get our power back, kind of like what you shared at the beginning of the class here, Laban. So thank you.
Oh, a pleasure. It was great meeting your mum and spending time. We're heading down to the Healing Utah event that Al was speaking at. That's why we were in Utah. And Scott is actually in Utah as well, not far from where we are. And do you sell produce from your farm, Scott?
We do. We sell goat milk and kefir and kombucha, sauerkraut, honey from our bees. We grow about 85 different plants. Right now, our harvest is pretty much gone. We have eggs from about 4 different kinds of birds that we sell. So yes, absolutely.
Where are you located at, Scott? If you don't mind me jumping in real quick, Laban.
We're in West Valley.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Put the link in there, Scott, if you want to share it. Get some Utah support with both Brad and Al live in Utah.
Okay.
So
well, I'll just put my phone number, and then that way it's probably easier that way. People can just text me or call me and if they want to come visit. Would that work?
whatever you want to do. Yeah. Anna and I are going to head up there for dinner in the time that we're here. So we'll report back, but it sounds amazing. And unfortunately, the turkey that was killed had to be buried. Wasn't able to be processed to be utilized.
Correct.
So in the work that I do as a coach, and there'll be an opportunity at the end, by the way, for people that are looking for help on a one-on-one perspective to explore what coaching would look like. But the work that I do, I want to share a powerful breakthrough that I had recently with one of my clients, and he's given me his okay to share this. So the guy I work with is a gentleman in his early 60s. He's on the spectrum, absolutely 100% genius, but he's on the spectrum, and he's got the number of quirks of someone who's on the spectrum, right? But one of the many benefits of his spectrum is that he's created this amazing software technology, which is, if it goes the way it should go, it will completely revolutionize compressionless software. And now that doesn't maybe mean a lot to most of us, but what it means is that he's been able to speed up by double and reduce the cost of the size of data. When you're talking to companies like YouTube and Spotify, Amazon, this is part of a $200 billion business. And this business could easily be sold for $1 billion plus in less than a couple of years. But he's gone through a divorce. He's made some decisions in his life that he's regretted, and that's why he's hired a coach to help him with possibility. And one of the conversations we had was that he needs to raise $2 million to get this product over the line. And he's surrounded by many successful people that have the funds, have the resources, but he's spent the last 3 years avoiding conversations with them to ask them for help, and to ask them for help so that he can remain strong, not so that he appears weak, and to keep asking for help until he gets it, to quote Les Brown. But he hasn't been doing that. He's so fearful. And I came to learn through the power of listening, and the power is in the listener, as Steve Hardison says, that he lost $22 million in a business that went bust about a decade ago. The majority of the money was from venture capital, and the main venture capital guy was cool with it. He's like, hey, shit happens. 4 out of 5 of these things that we invest in go bust, and the 20% that go crazy, make up the difference from all the other lost money. And he also had a friend that had $30 million of net worth as well. And he was so fearful of ringing this guy. And so we're on a call, it's all virtual. And I'm like, Al, get your phone out. And he gets his phone out, and I said, let's ring this guy. His friend's name is Marshall. And so we're on this Zoom, and Marshall picks up the phone, and Al, with all the delicacy of a cannonball, with my prompting says, Marshall, can I have $2 million to get this thing over the line? That was pretty much the language he used, right? Not, hey, how you going? Like, how's life? Like, hey, can I have $2 million? And the response from his friend was really fascinating. He got agitated really quickly. And he's, oh, look, I'm in the middle of something. And can we set a time? Can we set a time to discuss this next week? And he's like, yeah, no worries, no worries. So we schedule this call, and he invites me to tag along, and they meet up at a cafe just out of San Francisco where they live. And I'm on this call, and we start this conversation with this guy, Marshall, and this Marshall guy had already invested money in the business a couple of years ago, about 100 grand, and in exchange for a small amount of equity. And he was really agitated at being asked. And what came to pass was that there'd been a miscommunication about what the money that had been invested was for. And Al had used some of the money, the 100 grand that this gentleman had lent or invested in, or so he thought, to invest in some other things. And this Marshall guy got wind of this, right? But they never spoke up. They never spoke up. And so this Marshall guy had been harboring all this resentment towards Al, the guy I'm coaching, for spending money that he thought was being lent to him to bail him out of a tricky situation, right? And in 10 minutes of conversation, that completely cleared the air. All right. The friendship, they've been friends for 45 years. Very, very long friendship. And so it was never about borrowing the money. Now, as it turns out, Marshall wasn't actually in a position to get involved with investing in this business, but it wasn't about that. It was about reconnecting their friendship, and they got up and they embraced, and Al asked him, for forgiveness, and did he accept? And they rekindled this friendship that had been really suffering for the last couple of years and could have easily dissolved. So that was a great outcome. The other phone call that he didn't want to make was with the venture capital guy that he had lost the money with previously. Now, it wasn't so bad that the money had been lost, but he'd also lost $50,000 of a private investor, a family member. And the family member, when it happened, was upset that they hadn't reached out and let him know that it was going to go bust. And so it had created this apprehension and this fear for reaching out and asking for help, the power of speaking up. And so I'm like, get your phone out, Al. And he rings this guy who's the venture capital guy who's retired now. But he jumped on a call, and he called me back afterwards, and he said, Laban, you wouldn't believe it. He said he loves the project. He loves the project. And he wants to get involved. You got to send me through a slide deck. And so in the course of just 20 minutes of phone conversations and embracing the fear of speaking up, this guy is going to get his venture capital. He's going to get the money to get this product live, and, completely transformed his life. He was trying to get a job to go back into the workforce
I didn't get any drink.
I'll get one.
Scott, we've got some, there you go, to pay for this product to be launched. And so the reason I just wanted to share that with you is just an example of what can happen when you are taking bold, massive, and strategically courageous action to facilitate your own miraculous outcomes. I want to throw it to the floor for any questions on anything we've just spoken about, any ideas, comments that you want to include, that people want to think that's a good idea. And
We can do it after the break, 5 minutes break.
let's do it.
All right, it's 11:03 a.m. So we'll see you back at 11:08. 11:08.
say I got them superpowers. 24/7, I work every day and every hour. Here I go with what I know you like. What you know I like. You like rap, right? This that feels rap, the type that signs some deals. Rap, type of rap that's gonna maybe provide me with some meals, man. But it's more than that, forget a label. Yeah, gotta do it for sanity, it's keeping me stable. Please don't call me gifted, cause this right here wasn't given. Practice makes power, so that's the only way I can be living. Yeah. You may not know me, but let me tell you one thing. I don't care what you think, I'ma just do me, and I wanna hear you sing. I got superpowers, superpowers, I got superpowers, superpowers, I got superpowers, superpowers. Working 7 days a week in 24 hours. Yup, I got the business saying this boy sure is up to something. Why don't you come and listen? Just don't hit the power button. They say I'm crazy when I say I got them superpowers. 24/7, I work every day and every hour, yeah.
Thanks, darling. We need to get you an audio board where you can fade that out a little bit slower. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed your break. What's Laurie got to say? Okay. Laurie, with your permission, would you like to explore a couple of things that might be of benefit? And the first thing that I would say is I'm really sorry that you've gone through all that. That's a hell of a week. That's a hell of a week. And maybe the timing of this event really was serendipitous in a way. Well, there is no accidents, right? What's the likelihood of you hearing that show and coming on and being here today? We're talking about not just the power of speaking up, but maybe the power of dealing with this stuff. So if you feel comfortable, Laurie, maybe share with us what's the number one and two things that you really need help with right now.
Confidence. He always gave me the confidence to do what I needed to do in life.
What is having more confidence going to do for you right now in your life, in your world?
The confidence to keep going.
Are you worried that it's not worth going on anymore?
Sometimes, but yeah, I've got kids and grandkids and fur babies that need me. So one way or another, life goes on.
And we love you. We love you for sharing that so vulnerably to a group of veritable strangers, by the way. All right. Does it feel better getting it off your chest at least? You know, better than it was carrying around that burden. It's like there's a difference between being in victim land, being in victimhood versus actually needing help. All right. And I think this is a very clear distinction of someone who needs a bit of love and support right now. And if we can help you with that for the remainder of this, I think it'll be a great outcome. So Laurie, I want to challenge something that you said in from a place of absolute love, abundance, and zero judgment, by the way. What was your husband's name?
Thomas.
Thomas. What did you call him?
Oh, Tom, or I called him by his nickname T-Rat sometimes.
T-Rat?
Mm-hmm.
T-Rat.
T-Rat. He was a programmer, and they called him, that was a nickname he got in college.
Like T-R-A-T?
Mm-hmm.
T-Rat. All right, let's call him T-Rat. So if T-Rat was here on this call today, T-Rat Tom, if T-Rat was here right now, Laurie, and he could share one piece of comforting help or advice to you, what do you think he'd say?
He would tell me that I have the strength to keep going. That is why he married me so many years ago.
He would. Yeah, absolutely he would. You know what else he'd tell you? This is just my best interpretation, right? Because I wasn't T-Rat. He would say to you, Laurie, it was never me that gave you the courage. It was always your courage. I'm just supporting you in your courageousness. You never relied on anyone to achieve and create whatever you've achieved and completed in your life. Is that a fair assessment, you think? Because me and Anna, with how she empowers me to be brave, is by being my number one supporter. And she virtually says yes to any of my harebrained, outrageous schemes. And T-Rat loved you in a way that he wanted to support you in exactly the same way, right? And so my encouragement would be that it was always you. It is always you. And that no one is coming to rescue or save us. It has to be you. And who depends on you right now, Laurie? Who needs you right now?
My kids, my grandkids, my fur babies I have left here, which consist of 2 huskies, 2 guinea pigs, and a rabbit.
And you say you lost a doggo this week as well?
Yeah, my oldest husky. I went out to Arizona to the Autism One conference, and he came down sick while I was gone. And as soon as I got back, I had to rush him to the vet. The vet gave me the option to let him let him choose either to fight for his life or to put him down. And I said, let's let him choose what he's going to do. And he survived a couple more weeks. So,
What was your dog's name?
his name was Thor. He was a 14-year-old husky.
What do you reckon Thor would say if he could speak? He was on this call today. What would he tell Laurie?
He would tell me, thank you for being my adoptive fur mom and teaching me the joys of going on a walk. He wouldn't go on a walk for his previous owners. That he would just lay down and refuse to move, but he learned the joy of going out for a walk every night.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Like if you, oh, hey, Rory. I don't know how a dog would talk, but that's the closest thing. Anna, can you do a favor and find the episode you did with the pet grief expert? Because here's the beautiful thing, Laurie. I know this sucks. What do you got there? Oh, now you're going to make me cry. Anna's going to share an interview she did with a lady who is a pet grief expert. And why I would encourage you to listen to it. Everyone should listen to it as well. Al, we'll get to your message in a minute. Is because you now, once the grief starts to dissipate, and the more you talk about it, the faster that will happen, by the way. The more you share it in a manner of how positively uplifting your life was because of Thor and because of T-Rat and any other loss that you've had in your life, talk about them in a way that is uplifting and inspiring and empowering. It will give people in your circle of influence hope when they may not have any, and it will also diminish the pain that you're in. And all in good time. There's no hurry, but just and the tears that you cry have hormones in them that help calm us down. Do you know that? And so crying a lot is damn good. If you haven't read my book, I'll get Anna to post a link in there. You need to read it. I bawled nonstop for about 2 years when I would do my runs. And I think it was my body detoxifying the stored trauma of my life. And it was burning it off as I was running. And so maybe in addition to celebrating life, physically moving your body, vigorously moving it, changing your physical state. Tony Robbins talks about this a lot. It's if you've been sitting at home wallowing in self-pity, get up, find something that you love doing. Al took us on a beautiful hike to, what was it, Lake River?
No, it was Red Pine Lake. Red Pine Lake.
And no matter how shitty your day was, you couldn't have one just because of how invigorating it was, and surrounding yourself with people that are going to lift you up. And you've got so much to offer now, Laurie. You've got so many wonderful, powerful anecdotes, so many powerful life experiences now that are so beneficial to others. And, Anna and I were talking about service and sharing what we've endured by speaking up. Laurie, thank you for sharing that. I just lost my dog. I just lost my kid. There seems to be so much death and destruction going around us in the world right now that we need people like you to be able to have the courage to share unabashed what you've endured, because we all endure loss. And now you've got all the weaponry to help people through their own journey that are a week, a month, a year behind you. And I love this powerful anecdote from that movie, Catch Me If You Can, with based on the character Frank Abagnale. Has everyone seen that movie? Mm-hmm. Laurie, you haven't seen it? So maybe when you get off this Jump on, and it's a Leonardo DiCaprio movie and Tom Hanks. All right. I'm sure you're a fan of Tom Hanks. And this guy impersonated a Pan Am pilot back in the 60s based on a true story. But he also taught a whole semester of school when he was 17. And he got interviewed years later, and they said, Frank, how did you teach a whole semester of school and get away with it? And he said, I just had the lesson book and I read one lesson ahead. And that's a great, powerful metaphor for life, because you don't need to be healed from what you've endured, right? You don't need to have recovered from the loss of T-Rat. You don't need to have healed from the loss of Thor to be able to share powerfully in a way that will inspire, empower, and motivate people to not take their own life. Anna?
And I wanted to add something, Laurie. You also said that you lost your job. I just wanted to say, and I wanted to share the story with you, and it's a Laban story. In February 2019, when COVID hit Australia, Laban lost his job. They just let him go. And during the lockdown, during the pandemic, it wasn't possible to find a job. And I was lucky enough to keep my own. But for Laban, we lost like the main source of income. My salary was nothing compared. It was a very stressful situation. We didn't know what to do, honestly. However, it was a blessing in disguise, because what it actually gave Laban, it gave an opportunity to share his message. It gave him an opportunity to open another door. Because I just want you to understand, think, let me know if you have ever thought, maybe there is something I can do different. Maybe you had a thought that I want something more. I want something bigger. I am tired of my job. Maybe I should do something else. Did it ring a bell, Laurie?
Well, I only had my job 14 months, and it was a job I loved. I had to work from my office right here. So the company announced last Monday they were going to be filing bankruptcy within 45 days. So it's like, I hope they can keep me on for as long as they can, but that was one of the first to be let go. So I'm have a small graphics business I run from home. I'm going to try to get that jump started and try to get by with the unemployment until something launches.
I'll let Laban to finish his story, but I just wanted to say, we don't know yet, but everything happens for a good reason. We just don't know what's the reason yet. And Laban, do you want to finish what's happened?
Yeah. I was forced into doing this, what I love to do, a year earlier than I scheduled. And the only way that I could get my voice out was by creating the podcast, Become Your Own Superhero. And 10 episodes deep, I managed to convince the greatest motivational speaker in the history of motivational speakers to come on my podcast, even though I had 10 subscribers. And that's Les Brown, Laurie. You know Les Brown? And when you get off this call today, get on YouTube and just search Les Brown Motivational, all right? And maybe, Anna, you can find the episode on YouTube where I interviewed Les. And what happened, Laurie, was he came on and I only had 10 subscribers, and he didn't ask me how many subscribers I had, but if he had, I would have told him, but he didn't, so I didn't. And before we started recording, I said to him, hey, Les, what do you think of the name of the podcast, Become Your Own Superhero? Now, Laurie, this guy is my hero, right? This guy got me through some dark times. I know he's impacted some other people's lives on this meeting as well. And he was so unbelievably warm and comforting in the way that he described what I thought I wanted to do with how I was going to impact people, that I was endeared to this man, and I verbally diarrheaed my story of transformation to him, culminating in August this year, Les, I'll be celebrating 4 years of sobriety. And I didn't know it at the time, but Les had overcome a prescription painkiller medication that his doctor had put him on. He's gone through prostate cancer a couple of times. He's 77 now. And he just listened to me and he just said, congratulations, Laban. And I said, thanks, Les. He goes, do you have a book, Laban? I went, no, Les. He said, if you're going to be a speaker, you need a book for credibility. He said, who was the most influential person in your life when you were 5 years of age? And I struggled with this for a little bit. And I was like, oh, man, despite her many flaws, it'd be my mum. And he's like, well, fine. What attributes did you get from your mum? And I was like, oh, man, she was unconditionally loving and spiritual and tenacious. And he's writing all these bullet points down, Laurie. And he says to me, Laban, this is a God moment. I'm going to show you how to monetize your passion. And for the next 10 minutes, he reads back to me the blueprint for this book he wants me to write called Bet on You. He said, Laban, you're going to write the book. You're going to turn it into a keynote presentation. You're going to turn the keynote into a 3-day retreat. And even if you muck this up, you're going to make $200,000 in the next 12 months. And Laurie, he said, I'm going to write the foreword for your book. Now, getting a foreword written by Les Brown is like being endorsed to run for president by Barack Obama or Donald J. Trump, whichever way you lean. Right. All politics aside, huge endorsement for a veritable nobody. I had no platform, I had no fame, I had nothing. And I said in a moment of total insanity, Laurie, it was mid-May 2020, never having written a book, never having spoken, never having achieved anything of any significance, never finishing high school or even going to college. I said, Les, if you're going to write the foreword to my book, I'll have it to you by June 30, 2020. And in 6 weeks, I wrote the first draft, 30,000 words of Bet on You, and completely transformed my life in the process. And in early this year, when we were driving across America, we spent 2 out of the 3 months in the homes of former podcast guests. In fact, where we're staying in Utah near Salt Lake City, we are staying in the home of a former podcast guest. So what we think we want out of life and what we get out of life can be very different things. I would have never have been able to get Anna and I out of Australia during the lockdown without being forced into what I wanted to do earlier. It would have never presented the opportunities that we've had, the amazing people being connected to. I would have never met Al and Brad. I would have never met Scott. Would have never met you, Laurie. And Diane, I never sure as heck wouldn't have met you. So maybe, just maybe, and maybe you don't believe this yet because you haven't been around enough other people that believe you could pull this off. But maybe what you've just endured, which is an absolute shitstorm, by the way, maybe this is your new superpower. And maybe it's time to bring on the power of speaking up and talking publicly about your experience, your overcoming grief upon grief upon grief. And maybe the job that you did, which is, what was the job, by the way?
I was a chatbot trainer.
A chatbot trainer. Do you believe that God put you on earth to be a chatbot trainer for the rest of your days?
No, I I've been an independent researcher on the dangers of vaccines for over 34 years. That's what I would love to be able to do full-time paying job, but I don't. There's not too many positions for that.
Well, maybe Scott, maybe you could jump in if you can hear what Laurie's just shared.
Yes, I heard that. I think that's amazing what she did. That's yeah, I applaud you for doing that. You said it was 35 years, is that right?
Be 34 years this summer that I've been researching the dangers of vaccines right out of high school.
Wow, that is amazing. I'm impressed. Good for you. Good for you. Thank you for your work. That is amazing.
Scott, who can we introduce Laurie to? Who can we introduce Laurie to put her in the realm of people that are doing what she wants to do?
Well, I think if we got her on Robert Scott Bell's podcast, she might get more recognition and maybe get some offers.
Ooh, damn.
I was on his broadcast of the Autism One conference.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm, yeah, I wished I had gone to that after I heard everything that Robert said about that event. Sounds like it was an amazing event.
It was amazing. If you go to his website, August 19th, I'm in the second hour.
Okay. Well, I look forward. Yeah, I'll go back and listen to that. Thank you.
So, Laurie, there's a difference, though, between the person that you were when you're on the RSB show versus now. Isn't there? Because you were employed as a chatbot coach back then. Now you're not. And I would be willing to bet you my left toe that there was no call to action on that interview with Robert. Maybe there was, but I don't think there would have been, driving people towards a website that you've created or a mailing list or something that you can use to start connecting with the people that will help you in this journey. I've interviewed Dr. Stephanie Seneff, who I know you'll know. She's one of 2 videos that have been taken down off YouTube. And my encouragement to you would be, and you've got to figure this out for yourself, if this is something you're truly passionate about doing, wouldn't it be great to get paid for it?
Yes.
Oh, and there must be people screaming out for non-compromised researchers. Scott, what do you reckon?
Absolutely. Yes. It's I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that would love to see what she's done. That as you the one word you said, uncompromised. That's but there's a lot of us out there as well, and I thought I would and holding to our principles and our integrity and our own self. My wife and I both were arrested because we were speaking up against the tyranny of our government, and that was totally unexpected. But it was I think one of the proudest days in the past several years of our lives that happened. How many people would say they were proud for being arrested?
So, Laurie, here's a declaration for you. I'm going to ask you what you do for a living, and I want you to tell me. Laurie Harvey, what do you do for a job?
I'm a researcher.
Oh, give me more. On what?
On the dangers of vaccinations, the lies of our.
Are you the world's best vaccine and vaccine injury researcher?
Yes, I can find the proverbial needle in a haystack on a consistent basis.
There you go. There you go.
So, Laurie, let me ask you. Sorry, the internet cut out when you were saying what you did. What is it that you do?
I am the best independent researcher on the dangers of vaccinations.
Oh, it must have cut out when you said world's. World's best. Sorry.
The world's best independent researcher on the dangers of vaccinations.
Oh, mercy. Can I get an amen from the audience today?
Amen.
So, Laurie, because you had the power to speak up, look at how your life can now change if only you declare that. And I guarantee you, my other toe, that focusing on this as your new destiny, your birthright, your God-given gift, will take a lot of the sting out of all the other crap that you've gone through. Because I'd be willing to bet that is your reason for being on the planet. That will result in messages from people all around the world that you've never even heard of saying, Laurie, the research you did saved my life. The research you did prevented me from making a horrible medical decision. The research that you did has gone on to save tens of millions of lives. And my argument would be that maybe T-Rat had to pass away, and maybe Thor had to pass away to free up the energetic space in order for you to fully embrace this. And I'm not saying it's maybe exactly what should have happened, but maybe it's the thing that needed to happen in order for you to have the bandwidth and the space to do this as a possibility. How you feeling?
A little more empowered.
A little? You're the world's best. How would the world's best conduct herself? This will feel boastful, Laurie. This will feel imposter syndrome-y. This will feel gross and uncomfortable until you take ownership. And you don't have to. You don't have to make this declaration. But I promise you, the next time you go on the Robert Scott Bell show and he introduces you as the world's best, like he introduces me as the world's best courage coach, that will have a profound impact on you and your life and the people around you. My mother is the world's best vaccine researcher, or whatever it is, right? My nana is the world's best. She is the bravest person I know. I might know the world's best courage coach, but Laurie Harvey is the bravest person I know.
And who knows how many lives you're going to save, Laurie. And probably one day, one woman will get back to you and say, Laurie, just because of your research, you've saved the life of my child. Thank you. That's the power.
What else you got for us, Laurie? Talk us through what's going through your head. Well, we'll focus on this for another minute or two, and then we can move on.
Well, Anna, thank you for your words of encouragement. Your words have really helped. Laban, I heard you on RSB both times you were on his show, and I've got this written in my notebook, and this next week I think I'm gonna get my podcast started and get to work on this.
Bravo,
Well,
Laurie.
if you need help starting your podcast, that's what I do.
Okay, Brad, I'll get you written down.
Yep, I'll give you my number here in the chat.
Drop your details in there, Brad. Brad's got
Because
amazing.
I'm the world's best podcast coach.
Yes, he is.
I'll second the motion because he helped me get mine started.
And so, Laurie, the lesson there is really to start surrounding yourself with people that are doing what you want to do. All right. I'll send you Stephanie's phone number. If you're like, I can't guarantee she'll pick up or anything. You just tell her that this is what you do and ask her what she needs help with, maybe.
I've talked to Stephanie quite a few times. So,
Wouldn't it be cool to work with her or work for her?
yes,
Maybe.
I would. I would love
So,
to.
so
Judy
ring her up.
Mikovits as well. Judy Mikovits.
And I have Judy's phone number as well. She just never answered my phone calls or responded to my voicemails. but-
I would reach out to all these people and tell them who you are and what you're doing. All right, because you're now free of the tether of tyranny when it comes to holding your tongue about what it is that you do, because you the risk of being fired, right? The risk of the disempowerment of speaking up, getting sacked for following your purpose and your passion.
Yeah, I lost a job 2 years ago because I was speaking out.
Right. I got sacked from a job at the end of 2019 because someone overheard me talking about the link between mental health and diet, which has been referenced in papers millions of times around the world. And I sat there in the meeting. She said, "You're gonna have to pack up your stuff." And I said, "You know what, Justine," her name was. She said, "What's that, Laban?" I said, "I'm right." And it was one of the greatest moments of my life. Right. Brad, you've gotten away just observing there quite a lot today.
I'm an expert at that, Laban.
What do you need help with?
I don't know. Everything's going well. I just got to wrap it up and make it happen. So follow through. All the doors are opening for me. I'm in a great spot.
Well, you can convince everyone else that's the case, Brad, but I'm sure there's one thing that we could provide some value with today. Make use of the time. You don't have to make use of the time.
Well, maybe helping find the balance there, because I've gone from having, boundaries was the very first thing. One of the very first things you talked about, the boundaries thing. For so many years, I was afraid to speak up. Everybody I worked with, I would just kind of be a yes man, and I was afraid to give any feedback, or when I saw something not going right, I was afraid to speak up because I thought they might not want to continue to work with me, and I kept getting used and used and used. And finally, about 3 years ago, it took all this time to, Hannah, took all this time for me to get mad enough or whatever it was. And now I have no filter, and now I'm thinking I need to rein it in a little bit, because now I bark when it's uncomfortable sometimes, because I'm still, anyway, I don't know if I'm making much sense, but I'll snap and the anger comes out, and like, no, I'm not doing that. And here's why. And that's it. I'm done. And I don't know if it's necessarily the most effective way. Maybe need to get better filtering on that, and maybe a little more patience and tolerance, and listen to what people say versus just snapping.
Crystal clear. Very clear, Brad.
Yep.
Very clear.
Yeah.
So
Al's around me more than anybody. What do you think, Al? What can I what can I work on? I love constructive criticism. I can take it.
I think we both feed that back and forth to one another. I believe that's what makes us such a good team, Brad, is we don't take it personal, and we're able to speak our mind. We're not here to hurt one another's feelings. And I know you have shared some things with me in the studio. And you said, if my intentions are not to hurt your feelings or to make you upset or whatever, but this is how it's feeling. And I take that with the utmost respect. because you are telling me what's on your mind. And I think, again, that's what makes us such good partners in what we are doing. It's because we seem to do this a lot in relationships. We seem to think that our spouses should just be able to read our minds instead of just talking to them. And again, it's something that I'm still working on as well, with the relationship with my wife. We're both working on it, on having that communication. So yeah, Brad, I mean, the road that you're on, in my eyes, you're on the right road. And I hope the same. I hope that you're seeing the same for me, because
Absolutely.
it's helping us both grow.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Al.
Thank
And it's
you.
great
Thank
that you
you.
guys are close enough to be able to share that. The only thing I'd add to that, really, Brad, is, and again, none of this comes from a place of any judgment at all. None of it.
Right. Okay.
Is we have to get ourselves to a point in life, in these subjects that are causing us grief, we become consciously incompetent. We're operating 95% of our day-to-day is subconscious. And most of us are operating being unconsciously incompetent. We don't know what we don't know, right? Heard this countless times. So how do we go from being consciously incompetent to consciously competent? Well, you've got to understand the behaviors. You've got to reverse engineer what is happening. And the only way you can do that is by learning from people that have solved that problem. And I would encourage you to read a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh, I like it already.
Right, by Dr. Robert Glover. And I sent Scott the interview I did with him, I think. Scott, have you had a chance to watch it yet?
Hey, I had to take myself off mute. I did watch about 20 minutes of your podcast with him, and it was amazing. He talked. It's very much about human behavior for all of us that he brought up in the first 20 minutes, and how we operate, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. And like you said, mostly subconsciously, but yeah, I look forward to watching the rest of it and also reading the book. I was very impressed with what I saw in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's awesome, Scott.
So Dr. Robert Glover?
Yeah.
Okay.
The book, when you read that book, it'll be confronting at times, Brad, because there's a lot of behaviors that it'll help you identify that you'd be like, oh, I've been doing that. Damn. And that's good. That's okay, because now you start learning the tools, right? Now you start learning and figuring out how to manage the situation. And the trouble with continuing this behavior, you'll end up alone, bitter and resentful and ill, like my father, because he is the nice guy, and he retired completely destitute. None of his kids speak to him, really. He has a horrendously dysfunctional relationship where he's not getting any affection, intimacy, support, or really any love, only because he's allowed all this to happen.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that's you at all, not at all. But that is the danger and the risk of not understanding what's going on. Very, very easy book to read in terms of its design. But have a read of that and see how you go, and that'll impact you dramatically, and at least give you some more ideas about another pathway that you can go down. Okay. And not be a nice guy anymore. It's not about being a hard ass.
Right. Because I don't want to, that's been part of the hang up for me finding the balance, I think, is I don't want to lose that part of me, because I am a, loving guy, and I love helping people. It's what I love to do. So, but there's some days I feel like I'm losing that because of I'm on the other side now. And then it's like, where's the balance? So.
Well, it's people pleasing. It's not friendly guy. It's you heard the language in that text message correspondence. You're right, Laban. You're right. There was an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
You know, and if you haven't read my book yet, when you get to the chapter where I was dating Tulip, she's known in the book,
Yeah.
who was a virgin saving herself for marriage. And I'm like, I love you. I'll do anything to make you happy. And then I spent the next 12 months trying to sleep with her.
Yeah.
And violated all of her cultural and religious boundaries, trying to just get my way, because that's what I used to do. And ended up, she's still a virgin, last I checked, and ended up destroying the relationship. And it caused a huge amount of pain. But that book was a powerful book for me that I read post breakup. Powerful book.
Okay. Well, I've already downloaded it, so I'll read it. So
fantastic. I reckon this is a good place to conclude, and then we'll throw it open to a Q&A. We really appreciate the time that you've put aside to come and join us today, and I really hope it's been beneficial in at least one area of your life. We've loved having you, and I said earlier that there'll be an opportunity for those that are looking for more, and I know this will only suit a certain person. If Anna, if you could put my scheduling link in there, if anyone wants to jump on a call to discuss what a coaching relationship would look like, we all need help. We all need mentors. We need guides. We need coaches to expedite the healing process, the success process. You can learn a lot of the stuff by yourself, but a good coach will shortcut a lot of the stuff.
Absolutely.
And there's no obligation. If you feel energetically endeared to do that, then book the time. If this has been enough for you, then that's even better, right? So in closing, you can see just with a few basic examples of in your own lives, and in my life, and in Anna's life, and in Laurie's life, and Scott's life, and Brad, and your life, and Al, Diane. It's little simple things that we can do. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking, earth-shaking, super traumatic, confronting stuff. But the more you take bold, massive, and strategically courageous action to facilitate your own miraculous outcomes, the better you'll get at it, and the better the feedback loop will be, and the less burnt you'll get from saying and doing the wrong things at the wrong time, because you'll be empowered with knowledge. And I heard a great line from a now friend of ours, Anna and I's, Dan Clark, who's one of the best, he's voted in the top 10 best ever motivational speakers. And he says, if you're nervous before going on stage and having a speech, it's because it's about you. It should be about service. It should be about the people that you're speaking to. And I absolutely love that. And I shared that with a woman that Anna and I met at Whole Foods in Salt Lake City yesterday, and she started crying. I'm not laughing because I made her cry, but just she's like, "Oh, you made my day!" Like it was such a powerful statement for her. So thank you, Dan Clark. So thank you again. Thank you, Anna, for supporting me unconditionally as you do, and sharing your powerful story with everyone. And thank you for everyone else contributing in the way that you did. And I really just wanted to throw it open to any questions that you might have about anything we've spoken about or anything that's come to mind.
Okay. Well, Laban, I want to say thank you to you and Anna for putting this on. This has been amazing to hear everyone has had to say. I'm very happy to be able to get to know Brad and Al and Diane and sorry, I'm not remembering everyone's name.
Laurie,
thank you. I'm not able to see it very well on my phone. Brad, I wanted to make a comment on what you said earlier about how you are evolving and growing, and how maybe sometimes you don't have a filter. And when my wife heard you say that, she had a big smile, because she'll be the first to say that she doesn't have a filter. In fact, on RSB cast 2 or 3 different times, he called, because at her job, she tells people, not only fellow employees, but customers, exactly what she is thinking and feeling.
Yeah.
And, she was where they mandated, and they had this illegal mandate with wearing a mask. She was one of the first people in that employment of thousands of people to not do it, and to give the finger to her boss and management when they insisted that she do wear a muzzle. And we both have done that at our jobs, at our places of employment. And so I really, you put a big smile on my wife's face when you said
good.
you don't have a filter.
Okay,
So,
good. Thank
although
you.
I would say that having no filter needs to be needs to be modulated, or
Agreed.
tempered maybe. But I think that's a good place to start. So anyway, and I'm very grateful to be here with everyone. This has been amazing. So thank you again.
It's okay.
Thank you, Scott. That was awesome. And good to see you in the background,
Thank you,
Sarah.
Scott. She's back there.
Laurie?
Yeah, Laban and Anna, again, thank you guys for putting this on. I didn't think I was going to be able to make it because our grandkids are so active with sports. We're usually at soccer games and flag football games very early in the morning. Fortunately, today our earliest game was at noon, that's where we're heading. So I'm very blessed and grateful that I was able to get on here with all you amazing people. Appreciate both you and Anna Laban for the knowledge and just sharing your past, and even Laban, the information that you shared with, I believe it was Diane, and I think Anna even touched base. A lot of times things that we think are very tragic that change our lives, either we think of it that it's changing our lives in a negative way. I've got to be like one of the first to say I do not believe that is true anymore. I do believe that when stuff like this, bad things happen to us, it puts us on a whole nother path, and it's a path of greatness. It leads us down a whole different area. Since I lost my job in 2009 of 24 years, and then losing our home and my wife battling with alcoholism, with everything that has happened in our life, especially in the last couple years, and the people that we have brought into our lives, like yourself, Laban, and Anna, and Brad, and I'm just honored and blessed to be able to meet Scott and Lori and Diane. It has changed our lives in so many different ways, and even though we don't understand what's happening now, and I'm just going to say something to end it. My good friend Nicholas T. Smith, who wrote the book The Giant and the Smalls, he's on A Tribe of Giants, him and Ryan Morris. He was a guest on our podcast, and he said something to me that resonated very, very deeply. And he says, if you go back and you start connecting your dots of life backwards instead of trying to connect the dots forward, which are not even there on the piece of paper yet, you'll start realizing you're at where you're at in your life this very moment. This is where you're supposed to be right now. And you may not see it yet, but give it another 6 months to a year, and then go back and start connecting the dots backwards, and you're going to see exactly why you're where you're at right now. So thank you, guys.
Amen, brother. Amen. Awesome. Anyone else want to say anything before we we wrap this bad boy up? Laurie, I bet your head's spinning right now with possibility.
That's an understatement, but I just got done listening what Al said and I wrote it down and I've got in brackets here and it's like, maybe this will launch me into something that I've been wanting for over 20 plus years. So,
Yeah.
There's one word I'd ask you to take out of that statement, Laurie, with your permission. Do you want to know what it is?
launching.
Maybe. Maybe. Why? It's up to you. No one else will create this. Why would it be maybe? If you go full bore into this and it completely falls on its face, you'll know. But like Wayne Gretzky, the famous ice hockey player, says, you miss 100% of the shots that you never take.
Yep.
And what
yeah.
And what will your life look like a year from now, Laurie, if you are working with the best research scientists on the planet, breaking light into one of the greatest scandals in human history?
Yeah, I've found some eye-opening research papers that I haven't seen anywhere else, and I'm just going, what?
And Laurie, here's something for you. I'm going to do a Les Brown on you.
Okay.
Have you written a book yet?
No, I started 3 different books, but I've never finished them.
If you complete the first draft of your book by December 31st, 2022, I'll write an endorsement for your book. The condition is the first draft has to be completed. Doesn't have to be edited and proofed. We can get some help with the publisher. Do not die with this inside you. All right. And I'm connected to some very, very influential publishers and authors. Well, Dan Clark, who I forgot to mention, who's a dear friend now, is the lead contributor to the Chicken Soup for the Soul book series that have sold 600 million books.
I love those books.
So that's my offer to you. What you choose to do with that is up to you. Because we need accountability. There's a half-life of motivation. Because once you get off this call, unless you're able to surround yourself with people that can continue to encourage you, it'll be fleeting. And that's okay. But if you've got a commitment, December 31st it's not far away.
No.
I did mine in 6 weeks, the majority of it. And you can hone it and tweak it and fill all the links, all the other stuff. Write what you know. And if you need inspiration, read my book to see how I wrote mine.
And Laurie, call me within the next 72 hours. All right. Because I know that, like what Laban just said, is spot on. I know that with people over the years too. If it's not done within 72 hours, the inspiration tends to leave. And if I could, just wanted to share one thing, Laurie, about I wanted to start a youth program a long time ago, and I'll give you the short version on this. I was working a job where I had a potential to make a lot of money, and I was like, I was going to use that money to start a youth program for troubled teens, and as I was moving forward on that, I was praying and everything else. Please help me to make more money at this job that I was at. And within a week, I went into the boss, and the boss ended up cutting my wages in half. And I was like, God, you told me to ask for what I need, and I asked for it, and you cut it in half, really? Well, after a few years of being depressed and wondering what in the world happened to me, I realized later that God couldn't bless me unless I was away from that job. And after that, and I got my mind right, he blessed me tremendously. And I just retired from a 30-year career on that 3 years ago. So just letting you know, this is a door opening. I hope that helps.
It did.
Okay. It's scary. It's scary as heck. I get it. But trust going forward. Everything's going to work out.
Thank you, Brad, for sharing. That's awesome. Anything
welcome.
else? Anything else before we go?
I'm good. Thank you so much, guys. And good to meet all of you. Good to meet you, Scott and Lori. Thank you.
With everyone's permission, I can send the recording of this to the people that couldn't attend. I'll put it on the email group unless anyone has any objections.
No objection.
Objections.
No objections. I think that would be great.
Yep.
Yeah, you can have a copy. I'll attach it to a YouTube link, just be an unlisted one, and just for your own reference as well. Because Laurie, I know what's happening in your own. This will be a whirlwind. You probably get off and just won't even remember what's happened. It'll just be this feeling of possibility.
Good
I
job.
forget that we're dealing with the world's best researcher. Brilliant. Okay, guys. Hey, lots of love. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anna, my darling Anna.
Thank you, Anna.
The power of speaking up. We'll see you next time.
Thank you,
folks.
everyone. Thank you.
All
And
right.
thank you, Laban.
All right.
See everyone.
See ya.
Lots of love. Bye.